Hello everyone and welcome to chapter 4, time value of money. We will be discussing which in my opinion is one of the most important topics in finance, namely this chapter, the time value of money. And the reason I say it's the most important is that the concepts developed in this chapter will be applicable to almost everything that we'll be discussing subsequently. And not only in this class, but if you take any finance classes in the future, uh, every concept is in some way or the other related back to the basic concepts developed in the time value of money. So I really urge you to pay attention and to completely understand everything that we are going to discuss in this chapter. So here is a brief outline of this chapter. We'll start with a brief introduction to what exactly time value of money means. We'll discuss how to do compounding, or essentially the concepts in compound interest. We will then move on to discussing what we call present and future values. We'll discuss briefly what some present and future value factors are. We'll move on to discussions of annuities, rates of return, and conclude by looking at how to develop amortization schedules. A natural question that you might have is, why exactly do we need to know the concepts of time value of money? And a simple answer would be, on a personal level, you can answer questions like, suppose you want to buy the latest, greatest next iDevice 6 months from now. You don't have enough money to buy the latest iDevice, and you want to ask yourself, how much money do I need to save per month so that I can buy the latest iDevice coming out 6 months from now, given that I'm getting a certain interest rate. Suppose I want to buy a car in 3 years. What car do I want to buy? How much does it cost? And how much do I need to save per year, per month? You can apply the same concepts to paying tuition or paying your mortgage as you grow up and buy homes, take out loans. If you start thinking about retirement, you can answer questions like, if I want to retire at 65 with a certain amount of income every month, then how much money do I need to keep aside during my working years? It can also help businesses make better decisions. For example, you could answer questions like, should I build a new factory today, or should I wait for a certain number of years into the future where it might be more beneficial to me? It can help you answer questions like making choices between two different investment projects. Suppose I have two projects which I have to decide which and I can invest in only one, and we'll call them Project A and Project B. The concepts of time value of money can help you make decisions as to which project is a better financial investment for the company and why. These are some really simple applications of the concepts of time value of money, but they still are very important. And in addition to these, obviously, there are a lot more applications, as you will see as we go along. So let's start by discussing a concept of borrowing money. Most of us have at some point borrowed money from someone or lent money to someone. So let's suppose there is a situation where we borrow $100 from a bank, and the bank says it's going to charge an interest rate of 10% per year, and it's going to use compound interest to calculate how much interest you owe them. Now, suppose we repay the whole $100 that we borrowed at the end of 1 year. Then we know that at the end of 1 year, we need to give the bank 100 times 1 plus 10%, which is 100 times 1.1, or $110. Instead, if we say that we are going to repay the bank at the end of 2 years without having to make any interest payments in between, then we'll have to pay the bank 100 times 1.1 times 1.1, or essentially you'll have to pay interest uh, accrued you'll have to pay interest compounded for 2 years. At the end of 1 year, your interest accrual was $10, so you owed the bank 110, and at the end of 2 years, it's going to be 110 times 1.1, or $121. So looking at this, it kind of gives you a feel that there is some value attached to money depending on when in time it occurs. In other words, if you pay the bank at the end of 1 year, you have to pay it $110. If you pay it at the end of 2 years, you have to pay it $121. If you repay at the end of 3 years, it's going to be even more than that. So depending on when you return the money, you're going to have to give them a different amount of money. So this gives you a feel for the concept that there is some value attached to money depending on the time at which the money is received or paid. And that's a basic concept in the time value of money discussion, that there is some value attached to money depending on the time at which the money comes into your pocket or comes into your hand or goes out of your pocket. Now, obviously, if the bank is not charging any interest, suppose it's charging a 0% interest rate, then you would never pay the bank back, or you try to push it back as much as possible because you're not paying the bank any interest. So that's the only case where there is no time value attached to money, when the interest rate is 0. But you will never see situations where you can borrow money at a 0% rate of interest in reality. So that's just a theoretical concept. Now let's change our set of shoes and step into the banker's shoes. So if you are the banker who's lending the money, then essentially if you get repaid at the end of 1 year, you will want 100 times 1.1, which is 110. If you get repaid 2 years from now, you will want to get a certain premium paid for letting the person borrow the money for 2 years instead of 1, which we calculated to be $121 and so on. Now, so in a sense, if you think about it, $100 today in your pocket is worth $110 1 year from now, or it is worth $121 2 years from now if the interest rate is 10%. Obviously, if the interest rate is different, the value of money at the end of 1 year is going to be different depending on what the interest rate is. The value is going to be different at the end of 2 years, and so on and so forth. So if you can think about it, if given that there is a certain interest rate being paid depending on who's doing the borrowing and lending, having $100 in your hand today is worth having $110 in your hand 1 year from now. Think of the case where you deposit $100 in the bank, and the bank is paying an interest rate of 10%. So in this case, you're depositing the money instead of borrowing it. Now, in this case, obviously, you want to be paid a certain rate of interest instead of you paying the rate of interest. Since you are giving the bank money, in a sense, you're lending the bank money. So from your point of view, it's equivalent to have $100 in your pocket today, or you take out that $100 and loan it to the bank and get $110 1 year from today, given that the interest rate is 10%. So this equivalency between two different times is what is established by the time value of money relationships that we are going to be discussing.